Hello. I'm going to be talking about Boris Johnson, the way the BBC are treating him, and the Ukraine crisis. And so the problem is I'm in a bit of a bind with Johnson because, well, I don't like the way the BBC are trying to bring him down. He's not a perfect Prime Minister, very far from it actually, but he's the one we voted for. And we didn't elect the BBC, so that's my first problem. And yet the BBC is acting as if it had the national consensus to decide who are the goodies and who are the baddies in UK politics. On the other hand, Johnson is, according to the Telegraph, I'll put it up, yeah, that side, he's ditching his programme to get rid of EU red tape and restrictions, which is what we did vote for, in favour of chasing the net zero end of the rainbow, which is an impossibility, and that was distinctly what we had not voted for. So it's a bit difficult to know what to think about. When Boris Johnson was in the Ukraine and got asked a ridiculous and damaging question by a BBC reporter that had nothing to do with the Ukraine crisis and was obviously just another stab at Johnson. And before I carry on with that, I'm just going to remind you, I am Granny Opterix. I am on YouTube and Rumble and BitChute and Minds.com, and I would very much appreciate it if you would click the like button to tell whichever platform it is that you like the video, and share it, that's good too, and support my channel if you can. Right, well, what was happening was Boris Johnson was in the Ukraine. I'm quite sure it was there for political exposure, but there was a chance that he might actually be able to do some good with regard to the situation with Russia. He's just about the only one who could. You see, Germany won't say a word. I mean, they're keeping really, really quiet, or because they're worried that Putin will turn the gas taps off and the German people are going to spend winter eating cold Bockwurst and shivering over candles in their freezing apartments this winter. While NATO can't move without France, and France can't move without the backing of that fat giant, the rest of the EU. Greece and Italy are quite well armed, you know, but they're constrained by German reticence. And then there are other countries who have even more of a stake in this, places like Cyprus and Malta and the two L's, Luxembourg and Latvia. Countries that have so many rubles rattling about in their national banks that their entire economies would collapse if the Russians withdrew them. So really the only country in the European sphere that has a military of any consequence that can actually be used is Britain. And when Boris Johnson turns up to try to give backing to Ukraine, which might give Putin a little pause for thought, a BBC reporter, oh, such a clever chap called James Langdale, speaks up at the press conference with a very long, rambling, multi-treed question, but boiling it down, the question amounted to, Mr. Johnson, you're a crippled and weak leader with no authority because of lockdown scandals in Britain. What effect could such a precariously placed politician as yourself have on this situation here in the Ukraine? So when Johnson sits down with the Ukrainian president, or when he phones Putin or whatever, one of them is going to be saying something like, well, that idea may be all very well, Mr. Johnson, but how long are you going to be in office when you got back home? And Putin might very well bank on this and could take it as a cue to march right in and grab what he can. And with the possibility, as with any land grab, of a loss of life, a considerable loss of life. So it's a really nasty situation, and Langdale must have known this. But obviously he and his BBC masters think their job isn't to report the news, it's to hammer away at Johnson because they can't forgive him for proving them wrong about Brexit. And even if that means that the sacrifice of a few Ukrainian and Russian lives, well, that's of no matter if they've got their, sacrificial goat or lamb or whatever. For sure, I have my problems with Johnson, and his ditching of the EU business is a real betrayal. Oh yes, I would definitely like to ask him a few questions, but the one that Langdale asked, and in that situation, at that time, was not one of them. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.